Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to today's conversation on faith, peace, and planet. Today's program is hosted by Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons, which is part of the United Religions Initiative, the world's largest grassroots interfaith organization. Each month, Voices offers spaces like this to raise awareness about the ongoing threat of nuclear weapons. These monthly conversations all point toward Nuclear Prayer Day on August 6th, when we join with people around the world to remember the terrible bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all the people who have suffered from the effects of these weapons, to pray that they never be used again, and to recommit ourselves to building a future free of their threat. Today's gathering is about the climate crisis and nuclear weapons, each a threat not only to the natural world that we share, but also a threat to our faith that there will actually be a future worth living. So this conversation is a place for us to hear the truths we need to recognize about these threats, to grieve and reflect together, to deepen our connection to our own fundamental and sustaining spirit, and to renew our commitment to healing our world. Monica.
Welcome, everyone. We are so glad to have you here today. And we are opening this conversation with the way we open our Voices meetings, with the nuclear prayer. The beginning and the end are in your hands, O Creator of the universe. And in our hands, you have placed the fate of this planet. We who are tested by having both creative and destructive power in our free will, turn to you in sober fear and an intoxicating hope. We ask for your guidance and to share in your imagination in our deliberations about the use of nuclear force. Help us to lift the fog of atomic darkness that hovers so pervasively over our earth, your earth, so that soon all eyes may see life magnified by your pure light. Bless all of us who wait today for your presence, and who dedicate ourselves to achieve your intended peace and rightful equilibrium on earth. In the name of all that is holy and all that is hoped. Amen. Amen. And this prayer was written by the founder of URI and our President Emeritus, Bill Swing, and it inspires us to have our meeting today on faith, peace, and planet. And we are so excited to welcome our speakers. Back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Monica. Thank you for that. We're blessed and fortunate to have four wonderful panelists with us today, each bringing their own wisdom and experience to our conversation. So after each speaks, we'll open it up for questions and discussion. Feel free to put your questions in the chat as we go along in the meantime. So let's get started. Lauren, please introduce yourself and lead us off.
Thank you, Paul. And hello, everyone. I serve as the Earth Restoration Coordinator for the United Religions Initiative. I am an ordained interfaith minister, and my vocation calls me to work that I call eco-chaplaincy. For nearly 20 years, my focus has been on spirituality and ecology. A bit obsessively, I will admit, I take in all the information I can about ecological tipping points and human activity, and then I talk with other concerned people to see if we can better inspire our species to both perceive the severity of this moment and to drastically shift the kinds of impacts we are having on creation. At this assembly today, we already recognize the intensity of this moment. The international scientific consensus has been to keep carbon emissions below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And we have surpassed this. Data indicates multiple stretches of time already when we have reached above, we have exceeded 2 degrees Celsius. We're struggling with the terminology: climate change, climate chaos, global warming. All of these words become catch-all terms for a cascade of many interrelated events. Droughts, floods, wildfires, pollution, they all degrade our ecosystems. And then that degraded soil, too much water or too little water, a loss of biodiversity contributes to food insecurity, human migrations, and multiple public health concerns. All of this unsettles our economies. It makes them brittle, which seems to intensify all of the isms: authoritarianism, racism, sexism, religious extremism. Humans acting out of fear and scarcity increase misunderstandings, violence, and war. Whew. We are in such a predicament. This human predicament is often called a polycrisis. And when I put it simply and most honestly, what it means is that a planet that is getting hotter and hotter will result in an unimaginable number of us dying at accelerating speeds for reasons that none of us intended. While it is true and really important that we each do what we are called to do, it is also true that this polycrisis moment is begging us to appreciate the interwoven complexity of what we have wrought. An Indigenous friend of mine recently explained the connection between the loss of salmon in their rivers and the prison industrial complex in the United States. Climate chaos is the result of an extractive and enslaving economic system that demands constant growth. It thrives on disposability and built-in obsolescence. It is the same economic system that perpetuates poverty, hunger, addiction, and creates the existential entanglements that we're talking about today: climate change and nuclear threat. And these two have some commonalities too, don't they? Both of them harm life on a planetary scale. Both of them threaten the survival of life as we know it. Both of them are very expensive. My data is not as recent as I would like, but in 2017, the 30-year cost of America's nuclear forces was estimated to be $1.2 trillion. And in the same year, the cost of multiple hurricanes in the US, plus 76 Western wildfires, were estimated at over $300 billion. Never mind what happens if one of those fires takes place close to a former nuclear power plant. And because I'm speaking today from the US, it does feel important to mention that the US Department of Defense, which stores, transports, and tests nuclear weapons, is also the largest institutional consumer of petroleum products on the planet and has a blanket exception to all international climate agreements. So at the risk of being obvious, I will also say that these threats, both of them, were created by humans, and they're motivated by a misuse of power, the destructive power of war, and our destructive dependence on fossil fuel and profits in the oil industry. So all of this is really sobering. You might feel the anxiety increasing in your body. So let's just pause for a moment and take a really deep breath. You can do it again if you want to. Our exhales just now, yours and mine, they fed the plants and trees around us. And it is those plants and trees' pattern of constant generosity that gives us the oxygen we need for our inhale. Just look at this incredible reciprocity of creation's wisdom and care. We are recipients and participants. Nature perpetually invites us to conspire with her. We are quite literally interconnected, which is really, really wonderful and possibly inconvenient. We will not fix our current moment by thinking we are separate or by using a power over technique. And really, what we're talking about today, faith, it is an honoring of our sacred teachings from the world's religions and also the traditional knowledge of our indigenous siblings. We know from all of these teachings that power over techniques actually cut us off from our wiser and more holistic spiritual capacities. It's our interdependent nature that is both messy and complex. And that's why we need assemblies like this one to really listen and learn from one another's life experience and vocational training so that we can co-create comprehensive responses. Responses that move from compassion and courage, love and care. Responses that even in the horrible face of pain or hardship, remind us that we have an ability to show up to make things less bad. Together, we have time to choose imaginable, reimagined visions for what is good. So let us embrace new and ancient ways that right size us within the beautiful reciprocity that is creation. I look forward to more conversation about this in the Q&A today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for that. Just really rich conversation. Lucy, join the conversation, please.
Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you, Lauren, really for your words and also for framing these issues as, human predicament. I think that's a really important way to see these issues. So hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Lucy. Sorry, if I look up a little bit, my notes are a bit high. So yeah, I'll try not to stare too much upwards. But yeah, so I'm Lucy. I'm dialing in from London in the UK. And I'm a representative to the UN for Youth Engagement for Soka Gakkai International, SGI. And I work as a consultant for the SGI UN office. And I'm part of the environment and sustainability team. So SGI is a Buddhist organization that promotes peace, culture, and education centered on respect for the dignity of life at the community level and at the UN. And nuclear disarmament is really the starting point of SGI's peace movement dating back to 1957. But today our advocacy work also kind of embraces other critical areas of concern for present times, including the environment, sustainability, gender equality and women's empowerment, and human rights education. So I have a master's in sustainable development, and last year I began studying for a PhD focusing on the UN SDG agenda. So I'm really more familiar with the SDGs as a global agenda, and that's kind of the domain that I mostly work in. But I just wanted to say that I feel so encouraged to be part of this webinar, that brings the two issues of nuclear threat and environment together, because it's a rare opportunity. And I've really been able to reflect on kind of the nuclear threat, which is, it seems absurd that it's not, explicitly stated in the SDG agenda when it's all pervasive. So it's such a missed opportunity, I think, from a youth engagement perspective, given the huge role that young people play in the SDGs. And also there's so much kind of effort put in by countries and organizations to raise awareness of the SDGs and to educate on the SDGs, particularly young people. So it feels like such a missed opportunity not to address the nuclear threat within this whole paradigm. And so last year, I wanted to share a bit about an initiative that I was able to participate in. So the youth of SGI UK organised an SDGs promotional youth festival in partnership with a university. And the event title was I Disarm Myself. So the festival was organised around an SDGs exhibition created by SGI and the Earth Charter International, which is called Seeds of Hope and Action. But the main event was a panel on peace and nuclear disarmament. So in a way, the SDGs were like a really important backdrop to this overarching issue of peace and nuclear disarmament that impacts, every single one of us. And the title I Disarm Myself was chosen by the youth of SGI UK because it expresses their commitment or their personal pledge to peace and their awareness that they each have a crucial part to play in nuclear disarmament as ordinary citizens. And kind of I Disarm Myself reflects SGI's belief that peace starts in the hearts of every individual. And through transforming ourselves and the beliefs that we hold in our hearts, positive improvements can be made in society. So in SGI, we use the term human revolution to describe such a process of inner transformation through which our lives become revitalized by hope and courage, enabling us to greatly expand and enrich the positive potential of our lives. And I thought I would just share a very brief example of my own experience of human revolution to kind of, bring this concept to life. Years ago, I participated in a youth program that was part of the youth engagement strategy of a UN institution working on youth mobilization for the SDGs. However, instead of feeling empowered by this experience, it really did the opposite because of various issues that happened. And I ended up leaving the program along with my peers, feeling really very frustrated and in despair. And because the experience happened at the UN, I also lost a lot of hope and kind of confidence in the world because I had always looked up to the UN. And it wasn't until a senior leader in faith reminded me that I have the choice to do my human revolution to transform this experience. So for this, I used my Buddhist practice of chanting to turn poison into medicine. And through this, I felt courage and hope rise up from within my own life. And this inspired me to take action. And I started studying for a master's and conducting research on young people's experiences of UN participation. And I found common issues across, these experiences, which told me that the issues I had experienced were not personal, but more kind of institutional. So it's a really long story cut short, but a change in my attitude that I was, not a victim, that I could actually do something. This inner transformation was the starting point of my journey, which has now progressed to be doing a PhD where I hope to be able to tackle issues affecting young people's engagement in transforming global issues. So I really think, the message that I wanted to share today is really, SGI's message of hope in dark times, that human potential is infinite. And so is our capacity to create value. And inner transformation is the key to tackling both the climate crisis and the threat of nuclear weapons. And I just would like to share my screen for a brief moment to close with really two pieces of guidance that guide our work on nuclear disarmament and environment, but really overlap. So nuclear disarmament. If we are to put the era of nuclear terror behind us, we must struggle against the real enemy. That enemy is not nuclear weapons per se, but it is the states that possess or develop them. Sorry, nor is it the states that possess or develop them. The real enemy that we must confront is the ways of thinking that justify nuclear weapons, the readiness to annihilate others when they are seen as a threat or as a hindrance to the realization of our objectives. And from environment and sustainability, at the very heart of the values we seek must be a profound reverence for life itself. Such a sense of respect and reverence can awaken people to a sense of connection with all the forms of life with whom we presently share this earth, as well as a sense of oneness with future generations. Yes, I'll stop there and look forward to more conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for that. It was just very, very rich, and just really appreciate what you have to say. I think we have another PhD student waiting in the wings here. Would love to hear from Haneen.
Thank you so much, Paul, and thank you, Lauren and Lucy, for really poignant sharing and for bringing so much deep reflection to your presentations. I'm hoping to build on that just a little bit as I offer a reflection, and I look forward to the Q&A at the end as well. To be in service includes an attitude of stewardship, which is a domain of faith and peace and planet. We cannot make much progress or be in true relationship with one of these pillars without being in relationship with the other two. One might even say they complement or uphold one another. I've been in training as a scholar during my PhD program at Princeton University in New Jersey, and also worked widely with youth networks through Young Pugwash, Voices, and my past affiliation with the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists. More and more, we're all worried about the polycrises, which I believe Lauren also mentioned, which includes not one domain of risk, but many, which interact with each other in complex and ever-changing ways. The world and the opportunity that we have today will not be the world and the opportunity available to young children or grandchildren being born today or in the future. We must course correct and line our actions, our policies, and our stewardship back up with our true values, values that can sustain life in all its forms and that honor our interdependence, the fraternity not just among human beings that Voices and the groups represented here so beautifully today embody in their mission and their action, but the fraternity among all beings. Faith and peace and planet must act together. So what is an attitude of stewardship that can help ferry us through a time of uncertainty and great global shift? What are the signposts we can follow as individuals and communities, as nations and regions, when we face so much climate and political upheaval? What are the safety nets we can deploy, again, as individuals or in our homes, in our neighborhoods, in our circles of care and concern? Because we must have recourse. When the world as we know it or have known it for the past many decades begins to unravel, both globally and locally, what can we do to ensure that we turn not away, but towards one another and towards the lifelines that can give us hope and courage, commitment and solidarity to navigate the unknown? How do we develop inner resource to meet the moment that is asked of us, to invoke Pope Francis, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, but also the vulnerabilities and fractures within us that require our tending and our care so we can fully meet not just the challenge, but the regenerative opportunity of our time? How can we forge new bonds by way of faith and peace and planet that can strengthen all of us? I share these questions not because there may be a clear or even uniform answer for each of us, but as an invitation, a prayer, and a reflection that not only are our challenges great, but that the power of our response, our faith, our peace, and indeed our planet is far, far greater. So that we might see this moment not as one of collapse, but one of renewal. A renewal where through our stewardship, where we recenter the earth, the poor, the conflict-ridden, the needs of the time, and indeed our own deepest need and how we are in the world, and through this step more fully into our humanity and the future that is possible. And so it is deeply significant to think about ideas and policy and the problems of the nuclear age and environmental challenge. And it is equally, if not more important, to bring the fullness of our presence, our inner resource, and our vision to find the way through, not just individually, but in solidarity with one another, and to know that we can do it together. The goal is not merely to arrive at solutions for the polycrisis, but to use the fertile ground of the moment when old ways are not working or not delivering results for those who most need them, to build something that serves all of us, that can serve faith and peace and planet over all else. This is a task for all of us, not as a to-do list, but an orientation, a thought exercise where answers may not come from outside of us, but from deep within, as we turn towards one another in community and in solidarity, as we are doing here today. I just want to, in closing, thank Voices, Bishop Swing, Paul and Monica, Anna and Becky, and everyone who's helped so much to bring us all together. I hope we can learn from one another as we move forward, and most of all, trust ourselves, each of you here today, as full participants and stewards in this moment of crisis. Thank you.
Haneen, thank you. It's just wonderful to have you as part of this conversation. I've just really been looking forward to hearing from you. So, Bill, Bishop Swing, would love to hear your thoughts. You're the founder of this organization and of Voices itself as well.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. When I look at the title of Faith, Peace, and Planet, think of faith, maybe religious faith, an individual's faith. Or the peace is that the absence of war, or is it something else internally? I think a planet, Earth, is this all there is? Or let me just start with start with the planet. We tend to think that what we're about is all there is to be about. And we are just a little. In the Milky Way, we're part of the Milky Way, by the way. We're over here in this little part of the Milky Way. And in that Milky Way, there are at least 11 billion Earth kind of planets. We've also lived through at least 5 extinctions. And here we are creating these weapons to make sure that we have our 6th extension, and we go back to roaches and tree frogs again and start all over. Does it have to be that way? Till we know, can't we see the universe and understand how fragile and tiny we are, and how crucial our lifestyles and our decisions and our wars and our environmental attention is? We said, one of the speakers just said something about comes from the heart. Jimmy Durante used to have a song about the song has to come from your heart. Nuclear disarmament has to come from your heart. I was moved the other day when the Bishop of Washington at the president's inauguration said, "Mr. President, please have mercy." And everybody went crazy. What do you mean have mercy? What a terrible thought. Life threats against her. For quoting Jesus, who said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall have mercy." It's got to come. Okay, if it's got to come from your heart, are we approaching all the people who think like us, and we want their hearts to change and deepen, etc., about the environment and nuclear weapons? Or do we want the president of the United States' heart? Do you believe that the president has a heart? Do you believe it's worthy to pray for? Do you believe that there's a possibility of conversion? Do you think, what about Putin? What about the military industrial? People have imaginations. It's not just the people who are on our side who have imaginations about what's going to happen. People who are proliferating, they have imaginations. What are they doing? They're creating bunkers on top of mountains to hide in. Goodness gracious. Like little children, when we first heard about atomic bombs, children hide under your desks. If you're an American oligarch, you just get a mountain and you spend $1 zillion up there to protect yourself from the bombs that we're building. It's childish. And so much is at stake. It's got to come from the heart. When Israel was in Egypt, they prayed and they prayed and they prayed, and God finally heard their prayer. And it says, and God heard their prayer, and God said, I heard your groaning, and I have come down. Just because God comes down doesn't mean the game's over. It means you got to go through the Red Sea. It means you got to go through the wilderness. Whatever we've gone through now is child's play compared to what we want to go through. If the prevailing decision makers have their way. So we have a nuclear prayer day, not to get everybody to say one prayer or this prayer and that, just pray. And the word prayer turns you off. Meditate, but whatever it is, it's down in the heart, and you know there's a private place inside you where you make the big decisions about who will I love, what will I do with my life, what does it mean. This is the area that we're aiming at with Nuclear Prayer Day. So glad to be here today with you all. Wonderful hearing you. I'm learning a lot and inspired a lot by what you have to say. So nice to be on the same team, and that's it.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I actually had one follow-up question for you, and if I can, this, Voices was started as a place where very senior political, military, and science and political people, science people, could talk about among themselves about the moral decisions that they might be asked to face. They might one day be called upon to make. And I'm just curious, how did prayer come up in those discussions? Prayer seems like a long way from diplomats and military and scientists, and obviously it wasn't. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about the history of that and how that came about and why prayer was important.
Yeah, you can ask them more than asking me, but most of them are
Sure.
dead. So I'm about the last one.
You'll be easier to ask for that reason.
I'm easier to ask. It's not a long distance call. We, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, great physicists, ambassadors, we all got together and we met every month. And I said, well, let's start the meeting with a prayer. So I wrote this prayer. And somebody said, well, why don't we have a video of all of us saying the prayers? Okay, let's do that. And it's kind of interesting because some of the people are Christians, some are Jewish, some are agnostics, and probably atheists, but they decided to say the prayer anyway. Isn't that interesting? Just don't get hung up on what your traditional belief system or your official, and just reach down inside. And so all of them got together and said the nuclear prayer on a video. It's very moving to hear these people who actually, they had their hands on the nuclear weapons. They were involved in Reykjavik. They were involved with the military. They were involved in the sky and the silos and the submarines with all the missiles. And here they were praying. Very moving to me that it's not just the words of the prayer. It's there comes a moment where you just lay all the doubts and doctrines aside and you say, oh God, help us. And I think we met each other on that basis. So that's where it got started.
That's very, very moving. Monica, your thoughts?
I am so impressed with all of the speakers, with your moving us to prayer, Bill, and specifically to hear the hope and that call for us to really unite and to do something different, but do something personal and collective. So I'd really like to hear a little bit more discussion between our panelists, because we touched on a really important topic today, and we need to spread it out. Nuclear Prayer Day is an opportunity for everyone to do it on a collective time and date. And this year is the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We never want this to happen. And at this point, we can still say never again. But if we don't do some things that are collective and we don't move in a different direction, that timing for never again could fail us. And we would be facing something very, very different. So I've just been so touched by everyone this morning. What I'd really like you to do is something, if you'd be willing to, share a very personal thing that has meant something to you. Lucy, when I heard your response and how you've turned it into education and how you're broadening it and the two quotes that you gave us, I'm wondering if you'd talk a little bit more about a personal commitment that you might have or that's brought you to this place in your studies.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I guess a personal, for me, it's funny that, you know, my role is youth engagement, because engagement is that thing that I've always struggled with. To engage in life is something that I think is becoming actually more and more difficult in a world of like technology, where it's so easy to just, you know, have one directed interaction all day. You know, personally, I work remotely from home. I'm studying remotely. I recently moved away from the city where, you know, my family and all my friends live, you know, trying to make new friends. But I find I can go days without like really engaging. And I think that's something that we have to really, or I have to really make sure that I am not letting slip. It's so important for like to feel human, you know, to really keep in touch with our own humanity. You know, if you were sitting behind a computer or phone all day, that's not we're not seeing the beauty of our own lives. And just to share, you know, when Bill, you were speaking on kind of a cosmological scale, you know, describing like the beauty of the world. I just thought that beauty is also human beings. But you know, if we don't really fully kind of appreciate life in that way, it's easy to just become so, I don't know, burdened, or just our minds can become so overwhelmed by, you know, what's going on around, and you know, technology and politics. But really for me, you know, it's such a great opportunity to kind of, you know, be engaged with the environment and to just deepen my understanding. So for me, it's, you know, I'm really engagement. I have to really, you know, work to keep on reminding myself of my own, like, you know, beauty within and also that of others. And that's what really keeps me hopeful, and going.
Thank you.
Lucy, I mean, Lauren, I just see you grinning all over the place at what Lucy's saying, and I'm just waiting for you to step in here.
I just am appreciating the theme that all of us stumbled upon today. There must be some perennial wisdom here. Bill is speaking of heart, and Haneen is speaking of what is within, and Lucy is speaking about engagement and the human revolution. And I am often talking about how we might become more intimate with what is surrounding us, with what is in us, that collective breath that we experienced together today. It does seem like our resistance or persistence of this moment is really about forging intimacy at every opportunity we have, setting down the screen, making eye contact, taking a breath, touching the soil, touching someone's hand, but continuing to encourage relationship. The spiritual teachers in the traditions I hold most dear were always telling us to do that. So choosing relationship over transaction feels incredibly key to what we're all saying here today.
Haneen, I saw you reacting as Lauren was speaking, so you're up. You're not going to let that sense go to waste here. We know that you have something to say here.
Thank you, Paul. I knew that was coming. Well, thank you, Lauren, for sort of tying all these threads so beautifully together. And I think for me, one thing that's coming to mind is how this is something I've read about and at school as well, is that when we are when we are distant from our peace, or when peace is distant from the world, the horizon at which we're able to plan and think, and the ways we can unfold become very limited and very narrow. And in that sense, peace and security is almost a prerequisite, whether we're cultivating that within ourselves or whether we're helping build that in the world around us. It's almost essential, so that not just for its own sake, which is of course deeply important, but it's also essential so that we can draw out and invite and invoke the fullness of the gifts that different individuals have to offer, that different communities have to offer. And my understanding, or my sense, is that the climate crisis as we are experiencing it now, or as we may in decades to come, is going to need the fullness of that presence from different communities around the world, from different regions, from different nations, and from individuals. And so if we're not able to build a context and an environment where folks can kind of go beyond that immediate security horizon, to begin to imagine something different, to begin to offer something that is more resonant with, as Bishop Swing said, what is truly in their heart, rather than being focused on survival. We, as a global community, may be missing out, maybe losing out, because in the face of this upcoming challenge, everyone has a part to play. And so part of my work and part of my sort of resonance with this question has been about how to bring that out in myself as best I can, and also to be in spaces and be around others where I can hold space for what is truest in them, and what is most what is speaking out in them, in that moment, so that we can find a way through, almost in concert with one another, rather than sort of doing our actions individually. Similar to what Lauren did, kind of weaving together that that sense of that sense that our actions actually amplify one another's. And I think that's part of the beauty of what we're doing here today, and part of the inspiration of that. But I think that is also something that we can carry with us and bring into our daily lives, whether online or offline, really experiencing, as you said, intimacy, connection, and amplification of what we're receiving and what we're giving back out. So.
May I just
Lauren, please.
add, I know there's a good question in the chat as well, but I want to just piggyback on what's been said here and say that when I am talking about intimacy and connection with one another, when we're talking about engagement, Lucy, your PhD work sounds absolutely fascinating, how we can help young people engage in big issues. I don't think the grown-ups are doing that good of a job either. Like, the big issues are so daunting, and what stands between us and our engagement is a lot of fear, a lot of overwhelm, a lot of anxiety, and our spiritual practices can help us with that. So I think it's also really important that we use our lament practices, that we use our grief and care practices together, so that we can bow to the fear. We can say, yeah, this is super scary. And then we can go through it together to try our best to reimagine.
Yeah. Great.
Paul,
Monica,
did you see the question? And Beth Blissman has said, are there potential resources for high school age students as we move toward the 80th anniversary of the bombing? And I think there are a few that I just want to mention. But I also want to thank us for setting a ground that we can talk about all that is holy and all that is hoped. And Beth, my one resource is some books. And we are going to be featuring two authors next month on their stories from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and Bill's with the God and Nuclear Weapons. And there's some on our website as well with some videos and other things. So we shall be in touch. But that's a wonderful question, and we need more in a resource package to be able to share. I would recommend looking at this particular conference that we're having today and talking to them about what's in their heart and how we can put this into action.
there are also some films and there's some films that are appropriate for high school and different age groups on our voices-uri.org website. And we should put that in the chat somewhere, the URI website, so people can have that. I have one more question I want to ask, and then Carol, I want to get back to you in a moment. I just want to ask, just following up, we often think of the prayer life or meditative life as our interior world, and then we go out and we act in the outer world, and so we go back to our inner world and go out. I'm wondering if somebody can talk to an experience where they actually felt that the presence of that inner world in a political or a military or a real conversation about the scientific issue, where they just felt the presence of that was so powerful in such a conversation. So there was this merging. So we feel like those could a story about how they were working together and not just sort of separately. Does anybody have a response to that? I think I see a big smile from Lauren. I see words forming over there with Lucy.
Oh, there was a bishop once who used to say that the lesson that was just read reminds me of a sermon I want to preach. They don't have anything to do with each other, but it's okay. I have something to say that has nothing to do with your question.
Please, go ahead.
No disrespect intended.
No,
but if you just look at Pakistan and India today, two observations or 2 points of view. During the COVID crisis, everybody had to stay home. And when they stayed home, the air cleared. And people who live 25 miles away from the Himalayas could see the Himalayas for the first time in their lives. Human beings just kept their hands off of all the pollutants for about 4 years, and all of a sudden the world became glistening again. And now we're in a time where the Indian part of Pakistan has been, or Himalayas, Jammu Kashmir, has been attacked. India's out after Pakistan now, and both of them have nuclear weapons. And if they just got into a little nuclear, limited, quote, nuclear war with each other, it would have devastating impact all over the world and decimate those countries and set them back to Ice Age times almost. So there's something terrible about Pakistan and India. That if you can just take your hands off all the things that pollute and threaten and go for the kill, if we can just pull ourselves back from it we might be able to live into a world we can see clearly again. That's it.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Carol, you've had your hand up patiently. Let's hear from you. Carol Woolman. You're on mute. You're on mute, Carol.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to call everybody's attention to some things I put in the chat. The first one is a Hopi prophecy about our times and what it's like, and it has some instructions as well. And it says, don't cling to the shore. That's one thing. The shore being the old ways. Get in the current, go with the flow. And it says, don't be a loner. Don't be alone. Wolf. Work with other people. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. I love that. Then there's my favorite Bible quote, which is Deuteronomy 30:19, which is, I set before you this day. Where's it? I call heaven and earth as witnesses against you. I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life so that you and your children may live. I think that's just a wonderful guidance. Whenever we feel despair, whenever we feel a loss of energy to do the work that we need to do, remember to choose life. Always choose life. The third one has to do with prayer. Jesus said, when 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I'll be there. Okay, now Jesus is just one avatar. There are many, of course, in the world. And there was the peacemaker from the Iroquois people. And just there's been many, many guides who come to us. But the thing is that when we gather in prayer together, then the divine is with us and can do miracles. So I do think that group prayer is very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Lucy.
Lucy,
Thank you.
Sure.
I wanted to respond to the question that you posed about kind of the inner-outer connection. I have an experience that really reaffirmed this belief in the power of prayer. So I have been engaging in the UN Climate Convention, going to these COP conferences for the last few years. And a couple of years ago, I was part of this youth network, and we had the opportunity to meet this high-level politician in the climate space and ask some questions. And I really, was praying that morning to really have a heart-to-heart connection with this person. That really was my real seeking. That was really what I was seeking in my heart. So I kind of went into this group, this room. There was about 10 of us in the room. He was there. I was sitting like right next to him, and we each were able to ask a question. And I went last, and I said, you have the great good fortune to be surrounded by, young people in this space who are really, they have hope, they're inspired, they're, full of energy and passion. But the young people that I work with, at home are not like that at all. They've completely lost hope and in a complete and utter state of despair. What message of hope can I give them? Because I'm running out of things to say to them. And he answered, and it was very political what he was saying. We have the science, we can be hopeful of that, and this and that. And after he stopped, he spoke for just very briefly, like 1 minute, like he had prepared it in a script or something. And he'd finished, and because my heart was really seeking more, I just held his eye contact, and I was almost begging, that cannot be it, because I cannot go home and say that. There must be more. And there was nobody else spoke in the room for a few seconds, and then he just kind of opened his heart, and for about 5 minutes he was really speaking about kind of from a very personal level about really being filled with hope with young people. And I mean, so much came out, I don't even remember, but I was really touched, and I thought that is the humanity of people. And it's just about kind of mining for gold. I have this, everybody has this pot of gold within them. Sometimes you have to mine a bit, deeper to really reach it. But I really feel that everybody has that potential within them, and those opportunities for heart to heart can really, bring it out. So it really gave me a lot of hope.
Haneen, Lauren, Bill, any responses?
I just want to say hello to Alana Rosamond in Jerusalem, one of my favorite people. I never see you, and there you are. I feel terrific just seeing you. That's it.
That's great. That's great. Barbara Newsom, you have raised your hand. Let's hear from you.
Oh,
Welcome from Illinois.
oh goodness. Thank you so much from the suburbs of Chicago. I was moved just a moment ago to request your prayers during this session. I've been thinking about the nuclear professionals, meaning the scientists and the technologists, because that is the line of work that I started as a nuclear safety and security specialist with Department of Defense back in the day, and continue to work for the best care of nuclear technology to protect the planet because we are in such danger. So my prayer request for this group is pray for nuclear professionals. I do have some who are in a faith-based relationship with me, and I'm expanding that, thankfully, with some of our young people who are here today and connecting the different generations of the technical community. But that was the reason I joined Voices when I met Bill way back in 2018. I was really there at the Toronto Interfaith Conference, retiring from my work in a way. But my work now is in the faith-based initiative for what seems to be bringing somehow prayer, just bring prayer into your heart for the scientists and engineers. And I could share stories about some very moving prayers that I've said with those people because of that relationship. A minister who left military service met him at a gathering of interfaith people, came to a presentation on this subject, Voices, and at the end, it turns out he needed to pray for forgiveness, which we did because he was a military silo commander for missiles aimed at Russia. And he had never, ever been able to release the burden of that until that day. So pray with and for the professionals.
Oh, Barbara, that's beautiful. I thank you for bringing us there. And I'm looking at our time and I'm wondering, Lucy, we can do quickly, and we're going to have Lauren close with a prayer. And so let us just take a deep breath together for the professionals. Thank you. Lucy, and then Lauren.
I think I was just giving a heart. I had nothing else to say.
Oh, I thought I saw it as a hand, so it was my bad eyes. Sorry.
I'm not sure what the word just means in that sentence, Lucy. So just a hug. Lauren, all yours.
Well, this earth prayer is a series of images. So I invite you to go on this short journey with me. Creator, Spirit of life, source of our breath, we call upon the brilliance of evolution, the miraculous force that inspires stardust to become breath. Just as you have turned caterpillars into butterflies, grant us the courage to metamorphose. Awaken in us the curiosity we need to evolve wisely and respond in this present moment. Help us to recognize the actions of our short lives as integral and worthy within the billions of years past and the future generations to come. Spread our gratitude through tree roots and the mycelial web, who model for us all the ways healthy communities care for one another near and far. Cradle us in the cycle of life, so that we might fearlessly embrace and honor with trust and grace the sacred processes that carry us through birth, death, and rebirth. And finally, please fill us with a generosity like the sun's, so that our activism, practice, and efforts might be imbued with endurance and joy. May Earth and all creation feel our renewed and ongoing care for her today. And may the peace and loving kindness we co-create permeate throughout our ancient, alive, and emerging world. In your many holy names we pray, blessed be, and so it is.
Mm.
Amen.
And so it is.
Amen.
Before we close, Paul, we have to remind people, if you're on this call today and with an organization and want to be connected, please go to our website and register to be a co-sponsor. For Nuclear Prayer Day, we are going to be having these monthly meetings. And I cannot thank everyone on this call enough. The tenderness, the from the heart message, and knowing the work that you do on a daily basis to live into that is just so impressive. So I just want to turn it back to you, Paul, with a giant thank you to not only those who are our treasured speakers. Thank you so much, Lauren, Lucy, Haneen, and Bill. But to those in the audience, not only those who spoke, but for all of you who are here because you are doing the work. Thank you, and let us continue and together as we move towards Nuclear Prayer Day. Paul?
I have two further thank yous, people that should be thank you. One is Becky Suzik, who is our tech guru, who's lurking behind the scenes and doing all the fancy work. Thank you, Becky, for making this a success. Okay, and also Anna Ikeda, who was just critical to who was the co-chair of Nuclear Prayer Day with Monica. Anna, I know that you're there, and thank you so much and hello to your lovely daughter.
Amen.
Okay, hello. Glad you could be on with us. And so thank you, and please do visit the website. The website for Voices is in the chat. And please visit us and come next month to the May gathering, and we'll hope to see you on Nuclear Prayer Day on August 6th. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you, and to Joan, too, Joan Cleary as well.
And to Joan, yes, absolutely. Good. Joan, thank you for all your work. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.